and its own mysteries, but nothing could prepare him for the sight that met him when the small transport shuttle touched down on Lerathis, a planet known for its lush, crystalline forests and towering silver cities. Elias's mission was simple: meet the planetary council, deliver a message of peace, and observe the political climate. But simplicity, as he often learned, was never part of life in the outer stars. He stepped out of his shuttle, the soft hum of the landing thrusters fading behind him. The air was crisp but breathable, tinged with a scent that reminded him faintly of spring rain on Earth. Towering crystal trees stretched into the sky, their surfaces shimmering in sunlight like a million tiny mirrors. He marveled for only a moment, however, because a scream pierced the serene hum of the forest. Instinct took over. Elias sprinted toward the sound, his boots barely making a sound on the smooth, crystalline ground. Ahead he saw a small figure cornered by 3 heavily armed creatures. They were unlike anything Elias had seen before, tall, sinewy, with skin that reflected the light in shifting shades of green and blue. Their weapons were crude but lethal, and they surrounded the child, who seemed to radiate fear with every movement. Without thinking, Elias drew his sidearm. The creatures turned at the sound, their attention shifting from the frightened child to the stranger who dared interfere. Elias fired a warning shot. The weapon's pulse of energy lit the clearing, startling both the attackers and the child. "Run!" he shouted. The child hesitated, fear rooting her to the spot. Elias did not wait. He charged, his body moving on pure instinct. The creatures lunged at him and the fight began. His training kicked in, dodges, strikes, quick thinking. He was outnumbered but not outmatched. Elias grabbed the nearest creature, twisting its arm and sending it sprawling. Another lunged with a blade-like weapon, and he deflected it with the butt of his gun, striking with precision. The third hissed, circling, but Elias anticipated its moves, stepping aside and sending a well-placed kick that sent it crashing into the crystalline tree. Amid the chaos, the child, small, delicate, with silvery hair that shimmered in the sunlight, took her chance. She darted toward Elias, her wide violet eyes locked on him as if pleading. "Stay behind me," he barked, guiding her to a safer part of the clearing. It was over as quickly as it began. The creatures, realizing they were outmatched, retreated into the forest, leaving a trail of disturbed crystal leaves behind them. Elias crouched beside the child, checking her over. She was unharmed, though trembling from fear. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. She nodded but did not speak. Her eyes were fixed on him, curious yet cautious. Elias noticed a small insignia on her clothing, a symbol of a crown surrounded by 3 stars. He realized instantly she was not just any child. She was royalty. Before he could say more, a voice rang out, clear, commanding, and impossibly melodic. "Step away from my daughter." Elias looked up. A figure approached, flanked by guards who radiated authority and power. The woman was tall, regal, her skin a deeper shade of blue than the child's, her eyes sharp and calculating. She moved with a grace that made every step seem deliberate. "Who are you?" she demanded. "Elias Kane, captain of the Starship Venture. I just saved your daughter," he said carefully, keeping his hands visible. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Saved her? From whom?" "Mercenaries. They attacked her," Elias explained, pointing toward the path the creatures had fled. The Queen's gaze shifted to the clearing. Her expression softened for a moment as she looked at her daughter, then hardened again. "You are an outsider," she said, her tone leaving no room for argument. "Our laws are clear. Any being who risks life to protect a royal child is bound to serve that family until the child reaches maturity." Elias froze. "Bound? I don't understand." "I'm not here to serve anyone. I'm a visitor, a peacekeeper." The Queen stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "Your actions have consequences. You have proven your loyalty to my child. Our law does not leave room for refusal." He shook his head, frustration and disbelief bubbling inside him. "There has to be some mistake. I didn't ask for this." "Intent is irrelevant," the Queen said, raising a hand. A soft hum filled the air as a binding field emerged, invisible but palpable, wrapping around Elias like chains he could not see. Every step he took was met with resistance. He tried to turn, to flee, but it was useless. He was trapped. The child, Lyra, watched him silently. There was no fear in her eyes now, only curiosity and a faint spark of admiration. Elias knelt to meet her gaze. "It's not fair," he whispered. Lyra stepped closer, her small hand reaching out to touch his arm. "It's your courage," she said softly. "You saved me." Elias's chest tightened. He wanted to protest, to fight the rules, but the Queen's guards were watching and the binding held firm. He had no choice but to comply, for now. Days passed, and Elias remained in the Queen's palace, adjusting to his new reality. The palace was a marvel, towers of silver and crystal, gardens that glowed faintly in the moonlight, and corridors that seemed to shift subtly as if alive. The Queen watched him constantly, testing his reactions, studying his movements. Elias learned more about Lyra in those days. She was clever and observant, always asking questions about the stars, about Earth, about everything beyond Lyrathis. He found himself enjoying her company despite the circumstances, teaching her how to analyze problems and think strategically. She absorbed every lesson eagerly, her mind sharp and quick. Yet tension simmered beneath the surface. The mercenaries who had attacked Lyra were regrouping, Elias learned from palace reports. They had powerful allies, and their threat was far from over. He knew that one day their return could mean disaster, not just for Lyra, but for the entire planet. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the crystalline horizon, Elias stood on a balcony overlooking the city. Lyra joined him, her small frame silhouetted against the shimmering light. "Do you miss your world?" she asked quietly. Elias nodded. "Sometimes. But I've seen enough of other worlds to know one thing. Courage and kindness matter everywhere, no matter the planet." Lyra smiled faintly. "Do you think your world would be proud of you?" Elias considered the question. "I hope so. But more importantly, I hope you'll be proud of what we do here." The peace was short-lived. A sudden alarm blared through the palace, a warning of approaching forces. Elias's instincts flared. The mercenaries had returned, and this time they brought heavy weapons. The Queen appeared, calm but alert. "It seems your skills will be tested again, Captain Kane." Elias nodded. "Let me help. You are bound to my law," she reminded him. "You will not act against it." He clenched his fists. Rules, laws, and bindings could not stop what he knew was right. He would protect Lyra, whatever the cost. The palace gates shook under the first assault. Laser pulses streaked across the sky, reflecting off the crystalline towers. Alarmed citizens and palace guards rushed to defend the city, but chaos spread like wildfire. Elias felt the binding resist him, but he pushed forward, his mind racing, calculating, planning. "Lyra, stay close," he shouted over the noise. "Follow me and stay behind me." The child did not hesitate. She trusted him. Together they moved through the palace corridors, evading attacks, finding vantage points and helping the guards wherever they could. Elias's training and experience gave him an edge, but he knew this was more than just a fight. It was a test of his morality, courage, and ingenuity. By the time the first wave of attackers was repelled, the palace had sustained damage, but Lyra was safe. The Queen approached, her eyes reflecting a mix of awe and calculation. She had seen Elias in action, undaunted, clever, and willing to risk everything for her daughter. "You are extraordinary," she said quietly, though her tone carried weight. "But you are still bound." Elias looked at her, exhaustion and determination in his eyes. "Bound or not, I will not let anyone harm her. That is my choice, whether your law allows it or not." The Queen's gaze lingered on him as if measuring not just his words, but his spirit. Elias had passed a test far greater than any physical challenge. He had proven that courage and honor were not bound by law or planet. They were universal. And yet the binding remained. He could not leave. He could only wait, watch, and protect, knowing that the true test was yet to come. The twin moons hung high in the sky, casting silver light over the city. Elias stood beside Lyra, his eyes scanning the horizon. Somewhere out there, the mercenaries were plotting their next move, and when they came, he would be ready, for he was human and humans never gave up. The first light of Lyrathis's twin suns broke over the crystalline city, glinting off towers and casting long shadows across the streets. Captain Elias Kane stood on the palace balcony, his eyes scanning the horizon. The attack last night had been brutal, but the palace and its people had survived. Still, Elias knew this was only the beginning. The mercenaries who had attacked Lyra were organized, ruthless, and determined. Lyra joined him, her small frame framed against the sparkling towers. She had slept little, but her curiosity and courage had only grown stronger. "Will they come back?" she asked quietly, her violet eyes wide. "They will," Elias said without hesitation, "but we will be ready." For days the palace had been in a tense calm. Guards patrolled the corridors and city streets while the queen consulted her advisors. Elias moved among them, restrained by the binding that kept him tied to the queen's law but free enough to act in emergencies. He used this time to prepare, to teach Lyra what he could. He showed her how to assess danger, how to think ahead, and how to stay calm when everything around you was chaos. Lyra absorbed every lesson eagerly, asking questions, practicing strategies, and learning to trust her instincts. Her mind was sharp, quick to understand, and she began to offer ideas during practice exercises. Elias realized that in many ways she was more clever than the adults around her, unburdened by politics and pride. One evening, the palace guards reported unusual movement near the outer perimeter. Elias felt it immediately, the same tension he had felt before the first attack. He ran to the control room with Lyra at his side. The monitors showed a large force of mercenaries approaching from the east, moving with precision and speed. This was no simple raid. It was an organized invasion. The queen entered, her expression unreadable. "They have returned," she said. "Your skills will be tested again, human." Elias turned to her. "I don't need permission. I need to protect Lyra and the city." "You are bound," the queen reminded him, "but you will act in the child's best interest." "That is all that matters," he nodded. The legalities did not matter when lives were at stake. The attack came at dawn. Explosions rocked the crystalline streets, sending shards of reflective stone flying. The mercenaries were well equipped, their weapons pulsing with destructive energy. Palace guards met them in battle, but they were outnumbered. Elias jumped into action, coordinating defenses with speed and precision. He moved from rooftop to rooftop, giving commands, guiding the guards, and using the city's layout to their advantage. When a group of mercenaries tried to breach the main gates, Elias intercepted them, disarming, dodging, and redirecting attacks with skill that left the aliens astonished. Every move was calculated, combining human ingenuity with quick reflexes. Lyra watched from a safe position, her heart pounding but her mind sharp. She remembered everything Elias had taught her, the strategies, the ways to stay calm, how to anticipate an enemy. She assisted where she could, signaling guard units, pointing out weak points in the attackers' formations, and even leading a small group to secure a side entrance. The battle raged for hours, and just when it seemed the mercenaries might overwhelm them, Elias noticed something. Their attacks were coordinated but repetitive. They had a pattern. Using what he knew of strategy, he led a counterattack that exploited their predictability. He directed a small group of palace defenders to flank the invaders, using the reflective crystal surfaces to confuse their targeting systems. The mercenaries, disoriented and panicked, began to retreat. Elias pressed the advantage, driving them from the streets entirely. When the dust settled, the city had been damaged, but the palace and its people were safe. Guards cheered, citizens celebrated cautiously, and Lyra ran to Elias, throwing her arms around him. "You did it," she exclaimed, her voice filled with awe. Elias smiled, ruffling her hair. "We did it, Lyra, together." The queen approached, her expression a mixture of relief, admiration, and contemplation. She studied Elias carefully, noting his bravery, ingenuity, and unshakable moral compass. He had proven himself beyond doubt. "You are extraordinary," she said finally. "Humans, they are unlike anything I have known." Elias met her gaze. "I'm just doing what's right." "That's all any of us can do." The queen considered this. The law was binding, but she realized something important. Courage and honor could not be measured by rules alone. Elias had risked everything for her daughter and her people. His loyalty was not enforced, it was genuine. After a long silence, she spoke again. "The law is clear, but the spirit of the law is more important than its letter. You have proven your worth. You will remain a guardian, not a servant. You may move freely within the palace and among my people. You are trusted, and your actions will guide the future of this city." Elias felt a weight lift from his shoulders. The binding was lifted, not as a reward, but as recognition of his courage and character. He nodded respectfully to the queen. "Thank you. I will continue to protect Lyra and your people as best I can." Lyra hugged him tightly, her eyes shining with admiration. "You are the best protector ever," she whispered. The following days were filled with rebuilding and preparation. Elias worked closely with the queen and her advisors, sharing human strategies for defense, negotiation, and problem-solving. Lyra continued her training, growing stronger, wiser, and more confident with every lesson. Through it all, Elias realized something he had always believed. Humans had a unique strength, not just in their physical abilities, but in their creativity, morality, and courage. In this alien world, far from Earth, those traits were more valuable than ever. The Queen, observing this, began to change as well. She respected humans now, not for their weapons or technology, but for their heart. Elias's presence had reminded her that trust, courage, and honor could exist beyond the rules of law and tradition. Months later, when peace had settled fully over Lirathus, Elias stood once more on the balcony, Lyra by his side. She had grown taller, more confident, her mind sharp and ready for challenges the future would bring. "You taught me so much," she said, looking at him. "Not just how to fight, but how to think, how to make choices." Elias smiled. "And you've taught me something too. Courage is everywhere. It's not just human or alien. It's inside all of us." The Queen joined them, her presence calm and reassuring. "Elias Kane, you have changed more than you know. You have reminded us of what is truly important. Lyra is safe and our people are stronger because of you." Elias nodded. "I did what anyone would do. I protect those who cannot protect themselves. That's all I've ever done." But the Queen knew better. His actions had gone beyond duty. They had inspired, saved, and transformed. Elias Kane, human from a distant world, had proven that courage, wisdom, and morality could shine even in the most alien of places. The city of Lirathus thrived, and with Elias and Lyra watching over it, there was hope for a future filled with peace, cooperation, and understanding. Humans had left their mark not by conquest or force, but by heart, intelligence, and unwavering courage, and Elias, once bound by law, now stood free not because he had escaped, but because he had earned the trust and respect of an entire world. The bond he shared with Lyra and the Queen was stronger than any law, built on loyalty, bravery, and the undeniable power of the human spirit. Above the palace, the twin suns set over the crystal towers, casting long golden reflections across the city. Elias watched, a faint smile on his face. Somewhere out there in the endless expanse of stars, there were worlds yet to discover, lives yet to touch, and challenges yet to face. But for now, here on Lirathus, peace had been earned, courage had been proven, and humanity had left its mark. Lyra leaned against him, whispering, "Do you think the stars are waiting for us next?" Elias looked up at the sky, his eyes reflecting the fading light. "Yes," he said softly. "And when they are, we'll be ready."